What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the bakery for another YouTube video. As I said in my last video, I'm a bit of a step behind in regards to my monthly content releases, mostly because I've had a bunch of custom orders come up recently with deadlines, and I just really needed to set the YouTube production stuff aside and just really take care of that stuff and go to town on it and get it squared away. Also, I'm in the process of slowly moving into a bigger, badder bakery, which is going to require a bunch of scheduling, logistics, and just really moving a workshop and large tools is going to be quite the task. So bear with me on the content releases, and there's definitely going to be more to come on that, so stay tuned. But for now, let's get into today's video. So what we're going to be making today is 2 small boat anchors from scrap metal. Now, when I say scrap metal, you probably look down at the steel I have here in front of me and say to yourself, boy, this looks really clean, and it's also thick, heavy stuff. Surely it's usable in some way, shape, or form. But when I say scrap metal, what I mean by that is from a steel mill or a wholesale steel supplier, when a customer places an order with them and they have to cut things to spec, and it takes that steel out of like wholesale market range, which is usually either by the foot or, 5, 10, 20 foot increments. Those odd pieces, those end cuts, as we call them, are normally discarded or moved to a separate area, and they're sold at a much, much discounted rate. And this is a real great opportunity for hobbyist metal workers or just, Joe Schmo at home who wants to tinker and just work on different projects to scoop up some steel at a really affordable price. And what's really nice about, the stuff we're going to be working with today is all of this stuff fit in flat rate shipping boxes. So although you're really going to piss off your mailman, this is very affordable to even ship right to your door. Now, before we get started, I just want to let every seaworthy person out there know that we will not be making anchors in their traditional shape and sense that they're commonly known for. We're going to be making anchors geared more towards a John boat or fishing boat, and the customer has already given me a design and spec that we're supposed to follow on this project, so let's have a look. All right, quick look at what we're going to be striving for here. You might be able to tell in this picture, but this anchor actually has 5, legs or prongs on each end of it. And the ones we're going to be making today actually are going to have 4, much more like the design shown here. It's also worth mentioning that this steel is obviously very thick, and it's well beyond the capabilities of my welder, if I'm being honest. But, at the end of the day, these are just anchors. They're just going to live on the bottom of a river or a lake. No inspector is coming by to check my welds and their structural integrity. But, at the end of the day, I'm also a fan of just making the best product that I can make. So I'm really going to take the time to showcase, the proper, preparatory steps to get the best weld penetration that we possibly can. And also, before we get started, the customer provided me with 2 zinc-coated U-bolts, and that's going to be our rope connection to these anchors. But zinc is toxic, and we also don't want that in the weld. Clean steel is going to give us the best weld possible. So I've had them sitting in vinegar overnight, and we're going to eat away that zinc coating and have some fresh steel to work with. So the first steps are going to be to just clean all this up. So let's get started. I'm going to start by bringing all the small pieces to my wire wheel on my bench grinder and getting those cleaned up. Even though they look really new and they only really have surface rust, you want to get rid of the mill scale too, which is a coating that comes from the factory to usually prolong rust. And this can affect everything from your welds all the way up to the finish paint, so we want to make sure it's good and clean. The 2 main pieces that are going to be the anchor's main bodies are just way too big to hold up to a grinder. So I put a wire wheel attachment on my angle grinder and get those cleaned up that way. Now that we have all of our bevels ground into the small pieces, it's time to move on to the main anchor bodies. We're going to be grinding down all the areas we're going to be welding down to good, clean steel. This is going to give us the best weld penetration and the cleanest welds throughout the process and ensure the best case scenario for each piece bonding to one another. I also noticed that one of the U-bolts given to me is much taller than the other, so I take it over to the bandsaw real quick and trim it down, just so that each of these anchors is going to match as best possible with the scrap parts that I have. Before we start our mock fit up and tacking things into place, I go back and remeasure and remark all the areas we're going to be setting and welding pieces in relation to our anchor design, just a last double check as this piece is coming together. Okay, got a couple things mock fit up. We're going to have a quick look before we start tacking some stuff in. Like I was saying earlier, these bevels cleaned up real nice and real even. These are 1 inch in diameter, and I was able to bevel about halfway through. So what that's going to allow us to do is we're going to lay a primary bead as tight as we can get under that bevel and as hot as we can get. And that's going to give us real good penetration to the center of this 1 inch piece. And then we'll lay a secondary bead on the outside, which is going to be a nice, clean transition from one piece to another. It's probably a little overkill. Like I said, it's just an anchor, but we're all about doing things right and making things tough. So that's going to be the right way to do that. And this is pretty much where everything's going to live. I got everything marked. And these magnets from Strong Hand Tools are freaking sweet. Things are just getting into place here. It's time to start tacking stuff up, and yes, have no fear, there is some welding in this video. So let's get cracking. As I start to weld up all the pieces on both of these anchors, it's also worth mentioning that I'm taking my time switching pieces frequently and welding on opposite ends, and this is just to disperse heat evenly throughout the piece. Too much heat in a concentrated area with those smaller legs could actually warp it and pull the leg out of square. This is really common in steel plate. If you weld too much in a certain area, you can actually warp a steel plate from like dead flat. So just good method to the madness. We're almost done, but there appears to be something missing. Alright everybody, that's going to wrap up another video here in what will soon be the old bakery. Thank you all for coming back to the channel and hanging out with me. This was a pretty cut and dry welding job, but that's just the nature of the beast with the services that I offer. You know, sometimes a project could be very complicated, very intricate, and just very detail oriented. And then the next could be just a simple design, simple execution, and serve a simple purpose. If there's anybody out there looking to do a steel project on some kind of a tight budget, definitely check out any sort of miscut or end cut sections at your local steel supplier. There's huge savings there, and there's often a wide variety of steel to choose from. I mean, definitely a chance to make whatever you need to make happen on an affordable budget. And also, if anybody's in the market or on the fence about a 2x72 grinder, I can't suggest it enough. It's well worth the investment, and it's one of the most versatile tools in my shop. I think I have 2 or 3 more videos left in this shop, so if this wasn't your cup of tea, stick around. We're going to jump right into the Viking challenge after this, and then I might even have time for my first ever YouTube collab. So that's what we got on the docket. You know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.